morning, Chloe.
Good morning, Ren. So I hear you're going to tell us about white snakeroot today. I know a little bit about it, but not a whole lot, so I would love to learn more.
I thought you would find this absolutely fascinating, as I did. Learning about this plant kind of awakened my curiosity about histories of lots of plants, because many people, many experts believe that white snakeroot was responsible for the death of Abraham Lincoln's mother.
Oh my goodness,
Nancy
really?
Hanks, that's right. Abraham Lincoln at the time was just a boy of 9 years old, and they were living in southern Indiana, and Nancy went to take care of a sick neighbor, and this neighbor apparently was suffering from milk sickness. But Nancy was taking care of her and drank some of the milk that was in storage over there, and she came down with milk sickness and died. This was in 1818, actually October 5th.
Oh, wow.
And so what she died of, this milk sickness, was a mysterious disease. People couldn't figure out what was causing it. In fact, it was a several decades old mystery. So, decades-old mystery. About 4 decades, I believe.
Since it's called milk sickness, does it have something to do with the cows eating the snakeroot?
Absolutely.
And going through them like that?
Absolutely. You're absolutely right. Sometimes cows and goats would eat this plant, and they would pass this complex called trematol, which was a chemical complex, in through their milk and milk products. And then the cows would develop a condition known as the tremors, because this was called trematol. That was a chemical complex. And sometimes the cattle would start developing shakes, but it would usually be after people had consumed a lot of the milk and got sick. So it was a mystery that lasted about 4 decades. And it was actually solved by a woman healer or physician, and it was kind of discredited. She was, not listened to. Just so often the case.
Yeah.
But she was later proven correct. But the tragedy was that Abraham Lincoln's mother, again, Nancy Hanks, drank this and drank the milk and came down with milk sickness and died. And it's interesting to think about how our history might be different had that not happened. Think about how little changes in the trajectory of a family can lead to big changes in life. I mean, is it possible that Abraham Lincoln might not have become our 16th president had Nancy lived and they stayed where they were?
That is really interesting to think about. Like all the alternate histories that we could dive into there is just mind-blowing.
That's right. And we certainly cannot say for sure that it altered anything, but it's certainly reasonable to speculate that changes could have occurred.
Yeah, absolutely. So how do you distinguish white snakeroot from other plants that are on the forest edge, right?
That's a great question, because you're correct. Right now, there are a lot of white flowering plants in bloom. One of the key things about this, it blooms at the edge of the woods. It has opposite leaves with little serrations on it. And the flowers are kind of small, a little flat topped. Those are things that you look for. Some of the other plants in bloom right now are like white winged stem, which looks a little similar. But it has little white wings on the stem.
Oh, how cool.
That you can actually see on those. But this one's really common, and it starts usually blooming in Kentucky in September and on until it goes to seed, and it spreads everywhere. And it is an indigenous plant, so it's a native, but it has caused problems.
Do people still get milk sickness today from this plant?
It's been a long time, but the truth of it is it's still possible for people to get milk sickness. Because many people think that they don't get it because of pasteurization. But it's not pasteurization that has prevented milk sickness. It's dilution. Right now when cows are milked, the market gets, all those get pulled in with a lot of milk from a lot of places. And so the dilution factor has really, plummeted the milk sickness phenomenon.
That makes sense.
So it does, doesn't it? But person could conceivably get it if they're, say, on a homestead where they're just drinking milk from their cows, and those cows are hungry enough to eat this because they don't prefer it. Then it would still be possible for people to get milk sickness today, and that would be tragedy because many people die. In fact, one of the stories about this is that sometimes whole villages would be wiped out.
Oh my goodness.
or I should say, whole villages would leave because people would get sick and they wouldn't know why. And so they would pack up their belongings and head out. So it was quite a disruption for many small communities and large ones in Kentucky, Ohio, Virginia, and North Carolina. So
it sounds like a really scary kind of history that people have had to deal with.
You think
throughout the years.
that's right, and you don't know where it's coming from, so you don't know what to do. But again, it goes back to the fact that everything around us is full of stories, and those stories are worth knowing because sometimes they're connected with history and mystery, and they're worth investigating.
Absolutely, I think it's fascinating. So thank you for chatting with me about this today, Bren.
So thank you for joining me, Chloe.